47 years old, signing a name you had not used in 2 decades. People assume you grieved your married name the most. You did not, honestly. You remember the exact scratch of the pen forming letters that used to be yours. So what did reclaiming that name actually cost? And what did it return? Tonight, we answer it. Start with the pen itself. A clerk slid a form across a counter, waiting. And you wrote a name your own mother gave you, not signed in decades. Your hand hesitated for a second on the first letter, not from doubt, from distance. You had spent 23 years answering to another surname, completely, without question. So hearing your maiden name felt, for one strange moment, like someone else's mistake. Then the pen moved and something settled that had been unsettled for longer than noticed. Go back to the years before the counter. Divorce rarely starts on the day papers arrive. It starts earlier, in the slow accumulation of small evidence a woman quietly files away. The dinner conversations that thinned into logistics, the vacation photos where you stood apart. Technically together, the moment you realized you had stopped finishing his sentences entirely. Because you had stopped listening for them. Gen X women were raised on a specific promise. That a good marriage was the finish line, and reaching it meant the hard work was done. Nobody told you the hard work sometimes starts after the finish line, standing beside the wrong person. There is a particular kind of erosion worth naming precisely. It rarely looks like a crisis. It looks like 2 people passing a grocery list back and forth for years, wordlessly. It looks like a Saturday morning where both quietly gravitate to opposite ends of the house. Relieved rather than lonely, and neither of you names the relief out loud ever. It looks like planning a kitchen renovation with more warmth than any real conversation in years. Nobody warns you a marriage can look intact while it has quietly stopped, except on paper. Watch how the divorce actually unfolded, because the culture's version rarely matches the real one. The culture wants a villain and a victim, a dramatic betrayal, a single clean reason. Your reason was quieter and harder to explain at dinner parties, honestly, plainly stated. 2 decent people who slowly stopped being decent to each other in specific ways. You absorbed judgment from people who needed a simple story. Some assumed an affair. Some assumed you gave up too easily. Almost nobody asked the real question, honestly. How long you had been lonely inside a marriage that looked entirely fine outside. Name the practical cost, because it was real and it was large, honestly stated. You did the parenting math alone on weeks that used to be shared, quietly. You learned what your car sounds like when nobody else notices it needs oil. You sat at school events where the other parents did not know where to seat you. And neither did you financially. You took the hit women almost always take, honestly. The smaller half of a life built jointly. Socially, some friendships dissolved with the marriage. The way friendships do when built around couples rather than individuals, you lost people. That deserves to be said plainly, without the tidy bow some channels rush toward. There was a particular Tuesday months into the separation that taught you more than any lawyer. A pipe burst under the kitchen sink at 11 at night, water spreading fast. And you stood there with a wrench you were not sure how to use, and laughed. At the absurdity of being the entire emergency team for your own household, alone. You fixed it badly, then properly the next morning with a tutorial and a hardware trip. Small ridiculous moments like that end up mattering more than the big dramatic ones. Because they prove to you, alone, in a bathrobe, that you are not helpless without him. There is a subtler cost too, the one nobody warns you about, quietly stated. You spent decades being one half of a unit, introduced as a pair, planned for as a pair. And suddenly you had to answer, alone, what you actually wanted for dinner. For a Saturday, for a life. Some women find this freeing immediately, honestly. For most, it arrives first as disorientation, a woman who decided things around another's preferences. Does not automatically know her own the moment the marriage ends. Relearning takes time. Relearning your own taste, at 47, is its own quiet, private curriculum, unwritten. And nobody hands you the syllabus. But look what the divorce built alongside the loss. Because the ledger genuinely has two sides, you learned how much you can carry alone, which is more than the marriage ever let you discover, honestly, plainly true. There is a version of this that plays out with your own children too, honestly. They watch the marriage end from the inside, sensing the change before it was named. You spent months managing their questions with more care than you managed your own grief. Softening the explanation, protecting the version of their father you wanted them to keep. Even on nights you were furious enough to say something you would have regretted. That particular discipline, protecting a child from your own pain, nobody prepares you for. You made decisions, real ones, with real consequences, and answered to nobody but yourself. You rebuilt a bank account, a home, a schedule, a self, from chosen pieces. Not pieces assigned to you by a role. Women who never had to do this often mistake your steadiness for coldness. It is not coldness, it is specific calm. The calm of a woman who already survived the worst version of alone and stood. Here is the part almost nobody names directly. The divorce did not break you in two. It returned you to the one whole person who existed before the marriage divided you. Your attention, your money, your evenings, your name, the woman who signed that form. At 47 was not starting from nothing, she was picking up a self set down. Decades earlier to make room for a partnership, finding that self dusty but intact. Exactly where she left it, you are allowed to grieve the marriage and feel relief. In the same week, sometimes in the same hour, without either canceling the other. You are allowed to keep his last name if it fits your life better, or reclaim your own if it does not, without an explanation for anyone, ever. You are allowed to stop performing resilience for people who need you tragic or triumphant, and simply be a woman who went through something hard and came out complicated. And simply be a woman who went through something hard and came out complicated. So tonight, picture that counter again, the pen, the form, the letters once entirely yours. Signing your own name back was never really about the paperwork, honestly, simply true. It was the quiet moment you stopped being someone's other half and became yourself. Sit with that if you want, I will sit with it too. We do not have to figure out the rest tonight.